Free coast to coast with Jess and Nick.
Welcome back to Gluten Free Coast to Coast. I am Nick, and we have Jess over there. This week, we're going to talk about the good experiences we've had or good times, out at restaurants that we've had in our celiac journey. But first, we want to dive into a little bit more about what we're here to do. We glanced over that last time. So we want to just kind of tell you all here what we are going to do with this podcast and what Jess has with her business going forward. So to start, I am part of the Coast to Coast. I'm in California. I've been a celiac for, I always forget the math on it though. It's 2012?
Yeah.
2012, so 9 years?
Yep.
9 years. I was heading into my senior year of high school. And I was the first one in the family diagnosed. So I've been doing this for quite some time now. And I'm just here to talk about my gluten-free experiences with you all. And then we have Jess. We'll have her.
Yeah.
What you got going on?
So I'm Jess. I have had celiac disease since 2016. So I just celebrated my 5-year anniversary of having a diagnosis. So what we're doing here is we have had a really cool opportunity with our Instagram page. So we're starting Nick's Gluten-Free Kitchen with the idea of being around, named after Nick, with the 3 sort of platforms of education, creation, and community. So the education piece is going to be our Instagram at Nick's GF Kitchen. There we're talking about different sort of what we're talking about here, places to eat, things like that. But we're also doing a lot of education around what is celiac disease, what is gluten, because that's a question I get a lot just in my day-to-day, and those sorts of things. So that's where education is. Go follow us over there. We have our creation, which is going to be our bakery, which I'm so excited about, and we'll definitely
Very good thing.
thanks, be talking more and more about where it came from and things like that. But hoping in the next couple of weeks we'll have more information around where we're going to be, but it's completely dedicated gluten-free bakery. We've got cookies, bars, pies, all sorts of good stuff. And then we do have something for every allergy. So you can, no matter what your allergen is, there's something for you, which will be really exciting. And then the community piece. So the community piece is really going to be focused on mental health, finding people in our community that have celiac disease, that have gone through the same thing. So that looks like we just opened up our private practice for individual and group therapy. Right now, group therapy is to be announced at a later date because of COVID. We can't do group therapy, but it's something that we're looking to offer. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so we've been able to open up this practice and offer some individual therapy. So it's been really fun to start. So that's what we're doing. This podcast was born out of starting the Instagram and just having really great conversations with people that we wanted to be able to continue, and doing that like on stories with Instagram just got too long because we have a lot to say and a lot of information to share. So we thought that this would be a good sort of platform for us to be able to share our experiences and help with that community piece, that you're not alone, that we have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of it, with both very different experiences and journeys with celiac disease. So thanks for coming back for another week and hanging out.
Yeah, and before we move on, though, I want to just address anytime Jess says, we are starting our like she's doing therapy and stuff like that. It's her. Like, this is her business. She's doing everything mostly on her own. So I just want to give her credit where credit is due. I'm just here helping out with the podcast stuff, and of course, being the great namesake of the restaurant. But when she says we, it is a her thing, and super pumped for her to continue doing this, and super pumped for all you guys to try out the food too, because I've been, she does the gluten-free test kitchen. When I was home in the winter, I was testing it all, and I'm a big fan of all of it, so I can't wait for the rest of you all to be able to try it out.
Thanks. My favorite's the sugar cookies. So I don't like just like straight up sugar cookies, but those like Loft House cookies that are really soft, and people, it's like a really polarizing snack people either love them or hate them, but they have them seasonal with like the frosting's a different color.
They're always at like grocery like store bakeries. Always.
Hmm.
That's what
Yeah,
she
so
makes,
that's
and they're
all I
super
wanted.
good.
Thank you. That's what I'm so excited for everybody to try, um, because they're my favorite. Everything's delicious, of course, but like we've been working on those for so long to get like
Mhm.
the right texture and everything. So,
Which
anyways, we're really
they can
excited.
actually see those though, because those are on the website, right?
Yeah,
Like as
they're
soon as you log onto the
poster child.
website, you see the cookies, and I'm like, mm-hmm, that's what we're
They're the
here for.
picture. Yeah, they're the picture on our menu.
Yeah.
We have not released yet, but you'll see the graphics for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, we're really excited, and thanks for mentioning that. And we do have to say so like I feel like every department that we have, the education, creation, and community, has a different like family member supporting it. So with the bakery, my boyfriend Ryan, we call him the gluten-free scientist. He uh, knows the science of baking in a way that goes over my head. So we're a good team because I know what tastes good and he knows how to make it happen.
Yeah.
So yes, Nick, thanks for pointing out that
Yeah.
it's a me, but you're the community piece. So we got a lot of cool stuff going on, and I'm really excited. And this year, 2021's been a general bummer, but this has been a really cool way to kick it off. It's been a fun couple months.
It has, and with all the good happening, we can dive right into the good experiences we've had when we go out to eat. Last week we were just talking about the bummers we've had, whether it was we got glutened or restaurants had no clue what they were doing. We're gonna talk about places that they get it. They get it. We had really good food. We really enjoyed it. We weren't like afraid when we were there to eat. So uh, Jess, the first one is something that you go to more than I do, mostly because it's on the East Coast where you
Because I
live.
live here.
Yes. So take us away with the first one, or the first good experience or restaurant that you have here.
Yeah, so when we were coming up with this list, it's literally the first one because it's the first thing I always think of when people are asking me like, have you um been out to like where do we go in Portsmouth? And the River House. The answer is the River House. There's no questions asked. If you're visiting the area, it's located right in downtown Portsmouth. It's right on Bow Street, so it's like this really cool road that sort of like it goes up a hill, and all those restaurants are right on the water, and they overlook. They have a deck. They have three decks actually. They overlook where the tugboats are.
Tugboat's coming. Yeah, yeah. You can see
Yeah.
one of the bridges there too, the big one.
It's really cool, and you can see the tugboats coming in and out, which is really cool. Very like big staple for
Mhm.
Portsmouth in the harbor. So it's really cool, like ambiance and setting, really unique to New England, I would say. But then they, like Nick said, like they get it.
They get it, man.
They have a specific certification and training that they've received, which is really cool because, as we've mentioned, we've worked in restaurants a lot most of our young life. Um,
Yeah, honestly, until I moved out to LA, I was working in restaurants. So.
and we worked in the same restaurant, so we know like
Mm.
talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like it's a variety of what you get. And I'm sure you guys, listeners, know that as well, and you've had those experiences. But the River House, so what they do differently is everything that they fry is gluten free. So there's nothing going in the fryer that isn't gluten free, which means I could get, fried shrimp, and Ryan could get fried scallops, and we could share. Ryan's a gluten eater. And I know. So we could share plates really easily, which is nice. We don't have to do anything specific. They in like their French fries. So gluten-free French fries are hard to come by because
They're
they're like,
harder
oh,
than you'd think to find, like because like potatoes in themselves are gluten free, but then they're like, oh, we're just gonna throw this in a fryer with everything.
with all the chicken nuggets
Yeah,
that are not gluten
making it
free.
not gluten free anymore.
Right. So like if you're at a place with like a burger place, like yeah, we have a bun, but you can't have the French fries.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they don't do that at the River House. You can have whatever you want. The menu, they have a separate gluten-free menu, which is cool because you don't have to go through and like look for the asterisks, which is nice. Or like the things that can be made gluten-free. So that's been it's such a like a relaxing experience. Everybody there gets it.
Well, I was just gonna add too, like that the relaxing part about that is, again, us working in restaurants, not only like just restaurants, but like this being a seafood restaurant. Like we've worked
Yeah.
in seafood restaurants where they're like, all right, we're going to, batter this shrimp or whatever, and you see the mess it makes. So knowing that there's no like wheat or gluten batter around
Mhm.
makes you just at ease ordering whatever you want, because it's not like, did they prepare it in the right place, uh, did they clean everything off, did they change their gloves. You don't even have to worry about that because everything there is gluten free. So and you also wouldn't know, it just tastes really good as well.
Yeah. And so, like, to elaborate on what you're talking about, like when stuff is fried, it's like dipped in a bunch of different stuff. If you haven't worked in a seafood restaurant, and it's in a basket, and they'll like toss it
Mm-hmm.
so that it gets coated and everything, which is great. But if you're at a place that serves gluten batter and offers a gluten-free batter, there's almost no chance that there isn't cross-contamination unless there's a completely separate workspace off of the main line, which I'm sure there are places who do it. It's just rare. So to be able to trust that there is no gluten flour like flying around this place is pretty cool. The only gluten that they have is they do offer gluten free or gluten buns
Yeah.
for their sandwiches and burgers.
Well, because I've worked at a seafood place, and actually you worked there before me, but like we never worked there at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, where the way they did their batters was they got like one type of flour and another type of flour and like mix it together. And I
Mm-hmm.
literally had to quit that restaurant because there was just like, what was it? Just like flour stays in the air for like a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't know
basically,
the
like
math.
I was eating gluten free while I was there, and they made sure that I ate, which was super nice. They had food for me, but I was just constantly sick because uh, literally I was breathing in
They're
gluten.
like ingesting it through the air.
Yeah, and they were super nice when I told them I had to quit. They're like, absolutely, get out of here. But it's just stuff like that that like the River House takes that variable out,
Hmm.
which is super nice.
Yeah, and there's never been a time where I've like looked at the gluten-free menu and been like, "Oh, I wish I could have something else." So it's just that they are top notch to me. There's no question. If I am in charge of picking, there's like a 50% chance that that's where we're going.
Yeah,
Which leads us to part two of the other 50% of where we're going if I'm in charge,
yeah. I was gonna
which
say
is
if I'm in charge, this is like 90% of the places I pick.
yeah, yeah. So tell us about your pick when you're ready.
So this is Greenleaf's restaurant. It is a Chinese food place, and it was my favorite Chinese food place before I was gluten free. And so you get the diagnosis, you're like, oh no, I'm never gonna have Greenleaf's again. And then I think they rolled out like literally the same year I was diagnosed, like
Yeah.
a gluten free menu. I guess
Mhm.
someone like one of the family members' kids who works there has celiac or gluten intolerance or whatever it was. So a lot of their gluten free food or their food is made with lotus flour,
Mhm.
which I had no idea about until Greenleaf's. But I mean, you can have it's crispy beef, and just being crispy at like any restaurant, you're like, oh, that's a gluten.
Right.
It's not, and it is delicious. And I could go. I'll spend all my money there when I go home.
Yeah.
I'll go lunch, dinner, go back to back. Like it's one of my favorites because they not only it's not only the crispy beef though. I mean they do the rice. What's the rice that we get all the time?
Pork fried
Pork
rice.
fried rice. So they take away the soy sauce, but it's almost like much better.
It's so
It's
good.
so good. And there's like an orange chicken they do with lotus flour. Um, and it's the same thing where like they do have some glutens in there, but like most of their kitchen is like, or most of their menu is gluten free or can be done gluten free, and they take very serious precaution with it because there is someone in their family who has it. So again, they get it.
I get it. Yeah. They also their packaging. So if you let them
Mm.
know that you need your food packaged separately for a gluten allergy, what they'll do is so you'll get the normal like black takeout containers with whatever you've ordered, and then they'll put it in a plastic bag so that even if you're eating with a gluten eater like I tend to, and they order like an egg roll or the chicken fingers, which are like the two main not gluten.
Yeah.
Oh crap, brain goons. If somebody was rude and wants to break my heart and orders crab rangoons when I'm around because I'm clearly still not coping with the loss of crab rangoons. But if those are in there, you know that your gluten-free food is not only like in a plastic container, which for many restaurants would be enough, they're also putting it in a plastic bag
Mhm.
separate from everything else. Um, so that's pretty cool. And they will, if you let them know, like put the gluten like not even in the same bag, like
Oh
in
yeah,
a
you end up like walking out with like two brown bags, one gluten, one gluten free,
yeah.
which is again super nice because it's something that like saves you the stress of like, oh, did anything spill? When they're packaging it, was there any cross contamination? Like they clearly were like, all right, we're gonna do this first, and then we'll get to this next, whichever one it is, you know. But they make me feel at ease, and honestly, since being gluten free, I haven't had Chinese food except for Greenleaf's.
I won't go anywhere else. Could I? Maybe. I'll get sushi at other places, but it's honestly sometimes just not worth the gamble. Like you're gonna get nervous, and we
Yeah.
talked in our last episode where like I'll get so nervous I get sick, and then I'm like, well, I was definitely gluten when I probably wasn't.
Yeah.
So I've eaten sushi at other places, but if I'm eating like fried rice or something like that, I won't do it unless we're at Green Leaves.
Well, and I take that back because I went to one place out here in LA. Like me and my roommate, we tried to find a gluten free Chinese place because I love Chinese food.
So good.
And they're like, oh, we can do like orange chicken and this gluten free. What it was like boiled chicken in orange sauce. It wasn't like crispy
Yeah.
or anything. And like we're eating, we're like, oh, that's good. And then like afterwards, we're like, what was this? It was awful. And so that's why, you know, I go back to Greenleaf's where they're like they just don't like have gluten free stuff to say it's gluten free. They have like gluten free food. And I mean, again, we go there, we have full meals. Like I have like 2 or 3 servings of it, and then enough for the next day. So it's great.
Yeah, I think what you're describing from that restaurant in LA is like your average, oh, we've got gluten-free food like experience for people where they tried their best and like grateful because that helps with that social piece of getting to
Yeah.
feel included. Um, but Green Leaves, they just do it. And so I actually got Green Leaves a couple weeks ago now, and I did stories about it on our Instagram, and I saved it to our highlights. So if you're interested in seeing like what their menu looks like or what their food looks like, because of course I took pictures, check that out. It's in our highlights on our Instagram.
And that one's actually too, just to point out too, that one's in York, Maine, where the first one, River House, was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So we're like in the middle of those two, in Kittery.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, you go either way, and you got really good food.
Yeah, and there's one on here. My other 50% if we're not eating at the River House. The other 50% chance I'm picking is 110 Grill, but I snuck this in, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on it because we've got a lot of other cool stuff to
Yeah.
share. But I would be remiss if I did not talk about the 110 Grill because I'm basically in tears every time I'm there. We got takeout from there recently, Ryan and I did, and every package had a sticker with the allergen checked off, signed by a manager. And like,
Is that new?
no. Well, I don't know if we've
I
ever
don't
gotten
remember that.
takeout with you, but when you've gone to One Ton Grill with us, it comes out with a stick in it, clearly an allergen,
Yeah.
brought out to you by the manager, separate from all the other food.
Well, and
Which
that's not.
that's
I'm
tough.
about places that like where the manager brings it out. Like I've been a waiter. Like I know how to like properly carry food so it doesn't mix. But like when it's brought out by someone else who's like in charge, you're like, all right, that's safe.
Trust it.
Yeah.
And that's what they do at Disney too, which we'll do
Mm.
a whole Disney episode. Because but One Ton Grill, I think almost rivals the River House for their um, just ability to offer safety.
Mm.
I would say the River House wins out by like a hair because they don't even offer gluten fried food, whereas One Ton Grill does, but they have separate like the
Yeah.
workspaces are separate. So,
Like it's safe enough, but like when you take out gluten completely, like you can't beat that. You know.
exactly, and that's why they win.
Yeah.
Um, the my favorite thing, which really it ties into green leaves, is One Ten Girl has a crab rangoon dip, which is the closest thing I'm gonna get to crab
Yeah.
rangoons. Although I will say Ryan has tried to make me crab rangoons, and they were delicious, but it's just not the same. So they have a crab like the filling of a crab rangoon, but with delicious gluten-free bread, which who knew they even made that?
Not many out there.
It's so good. I get a pulled pork mac and cheese, which I don't love the three things together, but you separate them out because there's onion rings. It's clearly you can hear the change in my voice. I am
She's very
deeply
excited.
passionate about
She threw this one in last second too, and I didn't see it, and I was like, oh yeah, but she of course has to talk about 110 Grill because like the couple places we have on here makes her very happy, and I'm sure you eat out all the time there.
I literally made our parents go there the other night. It's not close to us. Thank heavens there is one opening in downtown Portsmouth. I mean, good for my morale, bad for like my finances. Because I will say it's not cheap. It's not like the next category we're going to get into, like quick places to go. Is it worth every penny? Absolutely. Do I buy whatever my heart desires when I'm at 110 Grill? Absolutely. Um, but I would like side note call ahead right now because they were packed, and I would, COVID, eat out at your own risk. We had takeout and ate it in the car. I will post the video I took of that on our Instagram, so you can see our car picnics, which have been a staple of the Foy family COVID experience.
I think just Foy family eating out in general. I don't know how many times we ate
Car
ice cream.
picnics, yeah.
Yeah, we ate ice cream in the back of the Fort Doors.
Oh, 1,000%. But I don't know if you have done a Longhorn parking lot picnic with us.
No, I haven't been to Longhorns in a while, but
Okay, so
yeah.
Longhorn is another good one. We'll talk about another time. But COVID, so our parents got a 6 foot folding table and put it in the back of mom's car, like the big Ford thing. And um, we there's like a parking spot in the parking lot that's like way in the back corner, and we put out the 6 foot table in the parking lot at Longhorn, and just got takeout and ate it in the parking lot. And this was like well before you could even eat inside. This was over the summer, so
Yeah.
was it
Well, and
still kind
first
of
of all, too,
weird?
like
Yeah, but
there's like that parking lot is probably one of the biggest parking lots you can find in the area because it's connected to like a shopping mall, like like massive strip mall too. So like
yeah.
I'm sure you could find tons of spots open for that.
Yeah, we were in the Longhorn parking lot, but like back in the trees.
Yeah,
It's just funny COVID stuff that we'll remember
yeah.
forever. So we did that with 110 Grill. I think we might have been like, maybe we'll try eating inside. And then we got there and we're like, we will not be eating inside. And we sat in the parking lot for like half an hour waiting for a takeout. That is how much I love the 110 Grill. Uh, so away from my little segue where I shoved 110 Grill in there, we have hinted at our cross country trip a bunch, and we're hinting at lots of episodes. We're gonna do a whole episode on what this trip was like because it's just a funny stories, and such a cool experience.
Mm-hmm.
But we talked last week about how from Nashville to the Grand Canyon in Arizona is a wasteland of all
Gluten.
gluten, just gluten.
Gluten. Well, it's crazy too because
Gluten restaurants.
that's like 2 3 days of driving. You know, like that's not like
Yeah.
oh you can get there in a day. Like
No.
you miss out on like I'm not a breakfast person, so for me, I mean that's like maybe 6 meals of like not finding anything to eat.
Yeah, so just picture this. We're starving. We haven't eaten since the East Coast. We're in the middle of the country. It's hot. We were going out in August.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just, on our last legs. And Grand Canyon is not on the way to California, which is where we were driving, but that was my um, deal with Nick is that if I was driving to California with you, we were stopping at the Grand Canyon. I'm not going all that way and not stopping at the Grand Canyon.
Sure.
We were working with a girl at Warren's who said, you got to go to the North Rim because it's like less touched by people. I think for our trip, that was the right choice.
Mm.
We stayed in like a wicked cool cabin. I like could go on forever about where we stayed.
I was just gonna say like the drive up there, I was terrified because I'm terrified of heights, and like they're like, oh, you're literally on like the edge of the Grand Canyon, and I'm just sitting there like shaking as I can like see 2,000 feet down. But the point of of the Grand Canyon story is we hadn't eaten for like 3 days, and we had a breakfast at the restaurant that because it was like a campground basically, which cabins.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh, we need to eat here. And we saw they had like a big gluten-free breakfast. And I don't know if it was the fact that we hadn't eaten in 3 days, or that may have been the best food I've ever had.
The altitude.
The altitude. Oh yeah, I mean, we blamed a lot on the altitude that trip. We're like, oh, we're so out of breath walking around the Grand Canyon. It's the altitude.
Nothing to do with our physical fitness.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't moved my legs in about a week worth of driving, but yeah, it was. I mean, I don't even remember like what I had. I just remember being like the whole time I was like, bug, I was loving it. It was the best food ever. And also the dining room looks over the Grand Canyon. Like the building's literally on the edge of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. We'll show pictures. Picture sound.
Where?
Picture sound. So yeah, we'll show you.
I don't even know. What did you have? Do you remember what you had?
Such a great question. One thing I do remember is I'm looking now at our pictures. If you're
because I don't even know if we took photos of it. It was one of those things where we're like,
oh, I did.
We just had. I mean, oh gosh, I don't even know. Was it like family style too, where they just kept bringing it over?
Yeah, and they
had like all morning until we're like, all right, we have. Because we made a mistake too. We're like, oh, we're gonna go Grand Canyon to Los Angeles in one day, and that's like an 11-hour trip. And yeah. That's when you're literally going across the desert, and like it was literally like 110 degrees out.
The AC didn't work.
My AC wasn't working, but that food was incredible.
So they made their own bread, and gluten-free bread. And I remember thinking that was the craziest thing because it also didn't suck. It was good bread.
And I think we were very skeptical too because we literally hadn't found food in 3 days. So then we get to this place and like, oh, we have gluten-free bread. And we're like, good one.
Yeah. And also we're in like the middle of nothing. There's nothing around us.
This campground literally like you enter a state park and then drive for like another like 3 hours until you are on the edge of the Grand Canyon.
You like just wind through the desert. And then you remember we crossed like a little bridge, like a little metal bridge.
Yeah.
And then you just slowly start going up.
Yeah, they give you like altitude markers too. They're like, oh, you're like 3,000 feet up, 4,000. You think you're moving, and you're just driving up this mountain forever.
Our chip bag exploded. Our marshmallow fluff exploded.
All over my car.
All over. But this is an important fact, we didn't notice it until California.
We got to a Chipotle, which we'll talk about later, and I realized the whole thing exploded, and marshmallow fluff doesn't come out of like cloth.
Not once it's been there for almost 2 days.
Cooking in the heat.
It was solid. So yeah, the Grand Canyon was, I think sticks out for us because it was so random and such like a diamond in the rough. They did not have to offer gluten-free. It was the only restaurant for a million miles. Well, they had that like quick service little takeout place. That's the picture I posted on Instagram of you eating a sandwich. Like delusional happy. They offered gluten-free buns, bananas. So this one just sticks out for us. Clearly, we just blacked out and don't remember what we ate. I want to say we had like pancakes. It wasn't.
It wasn't like eggs and bacon. It was like a real breakfast.
It was real breakfast.
At that point, I was still fairly new. Like not fairly new, but like I wasn't cooking for myself, so I wasn't like
a new adult.
Yeah, I was new to being an adult, so like when I had this stuff, I'm like, oh, that's an option for me. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
But now like to kind of move forward to the next segment. While we were on this trip, I wish we knew some of these places that for me have been really helpful. Jess, I think you have a little bit more hesitation with these because Jess, I feel her reaction to being glutened is much different than mine, and it's much quicker. Mine can be like, I'm a little fatigued today. She's like, yeah, I gotta go.
I'm incapacitated.
Yeah, these places are, fast food restaurants, or whether it's a fast food restaurant or a plate or something you can get at a fast food restaurant. Because, we'll just start off. McDonald's is not great. They honestly don't do anything for us. Even their fries aren't gluten-free because they're cooked in something wrong. But they do McFlurries.
Yeah. So this is my favorite quick snack. When I got my second COVID vaccine, I treated myself to a McFlurry. And it really hasn't stopped since then recently. But so why a McFlurry is safe. Their ice cream is gluten-free. They offer Oreo. Do not get the Oreo. It is not gluten-free. There are mini M&Ms and they are stored separately. So they're going to fill the cup with the ice cream. They're going to pull down from the M&Ms container and put it right in. They're going to take your spoon that they're going to then serve to you. They're going to use that as your mixer in their machine. So you'll see the spoon has like a square insert where it attaches to their machine. So it's not like they're using the same metal mixer you would see at like another like place like a
Yeah,
Five
it's
Guys
not
that
like a
serves
milkshake mixer. It's like it is, but they're attaching a plastic straw every time. So
a
you're
plastic
yeah,
spoon to a
spoon. Yeah.
paper. Like they're not, there's no reusing anything. It's all being given to you for one time use,
Mhm.
which is pretty amazing because there's no cross contamination.
Yeah.
I mean, I never want to say no because I want you to go and something happen and be like, Jess said. But the risk, in my opinion, so far outweighs like starving and not getting a McFlurry. Um, so I absolutely feel safe with it. I've never gotten sick from a McFlurry, and as we have said, I get sick pretty easily with the gluten exposure. So a McFlurry is definitely a good way, like just a quick thing to increase your blood sugar.
Well, and so like at Wendy's, because we're using names this episode.
Yeah.
Wendy's, they have their Frosties, which are gluten free, but they also have like things where if you go on their website, they'll be like, "This is gluten free," and that was precaution. Like, look, it's not a gluten free facility, but I mean, they have. I've gotten the taco salad there. They do baked potatoes. Their fries, I believe, are gluten free.
I would have to check. So I think like
I
out of
don't think my
all
word
of
on it,
them, they're like the most gluten free, but there's something about their oil,
but
like that the way they drain it or something
it's
funky.
well, I know McDonald's like the way they clean it is like they
Yeah.
empty out the fryer and then when they fill it back up, everything that was at the bottom of the fryer comes up
Yep.
with it. It sounds super gross, but
I
like
know.
us gluten-free people, like that's what we have to worry about.
Yeah. So let me fact check that and I'll put that in our show notes to see why. Because I've never gotten French fries at Wendy's, but would I love to? Yes, because
Yeah.
what is a chocolate frosty without French fries?
Yeah, you got to dip the fries in the frosty. That's the only reason I get frosties.
Oh, Frosties are my favorite. And
Yeah.
I have a like a Wendy's location in New England that makes that like I'm a fanatic.
Yeah.
But the taco salad, Wendy's is another example of like that social experience where like you're just out and you've got to stop somewhere quick and your friends are gonna look to you and go, Jess, where can you
Yeah,
eat?
where do
Nick,
you
where
want to
can you
eat?
Wendy's. We're gonna go to Wendy's. We're just
Yeah.
gonna stop in and they can get their gluten chicken sandwich. Um, and you can have a taco salad and it is good. And here's why it's
Big.
gluten free. They pre-prep all of their salad bases, which is just cheese, lettuce, and tomatoes. Put it away.
Mhm.
So, I mean, just from my experience with working in a restaurant, they're not like doing one taco salad and then doing one that has croutons on it. Like, they're going to bust out a bunch of the base for the taco salads during their prep and put them away. And then the chips. So they give you nacho chips prepackaged. They're not, nothing is happening in Wendy's where there's an option for cross contamination. They put it away. Then they give you salsa, sour cream, all of that's prepackaged. Nothing's being dealt with at Wendy's. And then they give you their chili. I wish I didn't love it like I do, but it's
Well,
good.
and it's funny the way you're describing it. You end up doing like 90% of the work.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah, like it's one of those things like if your friends are like, "Hey, where do you want to go eat?" Because they always ask you because you're gluten free and where can you eat? It's very easy and it's fast, so you don't have to worry about anything. It's prepackaged. Which, as you're saying that, I forgot that that's how they do the taco salads. One of the ones I chose to add to this list was Chick-fil-A.
Mhm.
There's not many in your neck of the woods. Is there any actually? They have that food truck, but I don't know if I trust that.
I don't
Um,
know.
I
I
not in like our
Massachusetts.
like seacoast area. There's a bunch out here in LA, but the way they do it, I get the grilled chicken club, and it's the same thing. Where like they do their grilled chicken, and then they give you the lettuce and tomato in its own packaging, and the gluten free bun is wrapped. Like
Oh,
they haven't broke the seal or anything, so you know that that gluten-free bun hasn't touched anything. Uh, so again, yeah, I end up doing most of the work, but like,
I'd
it,
rather.
what's up?
I'd rather do more of the work.
Well, yeah, like it makes me feel safe. And then the waffle fries there are gluten-free because those are cooked in complete separate fryers because it's like their breaded chicken is in like canola oil or something like that, while their waffle fries are cooked in like a peanut oil. So that like you have not, or it's, I don't know what kind of oil it is. It's different.
Right.
So like you never have to worry about the issues that you run into at other fast food restaurants.
That's
So
amazing.
I eat there all the time. There's a couple near my
Yeah.
work that I go to, but that's one that like if we had known about driving cross country or any of these, I feel
We
like
did. Yeah. That's
I feel
important.
like we
We
knew
know
about some of these and we're just like, nah, we're good.
it. Did we though? I mean, maybe in
No,
my
I didn't know
first,
about Wendy's. Wendy's
I
was
did
new
not
to me when
know.
I got out here. Same with Chick-fil-A because there wasn't Chick-fil-A's out there.
I didn't know about any of the last. I mean, so let's talk about Chipotle.
Yeah.
Um, Chipotle might have been one that we knew about.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I say I've been eating Chipotle since like early days of college. You know, I was like 1 or 2 years into being gluten free, and what's great about them is first of all you can see all the food, and you can see how it's made in the back. So I mean, you just go and order. All you gotta say is like you want a bowl to go. I get it to go because you can shake it up.
oh,
But you can tell them too to like change their gloves. I don't, and that's my own. That's my own like. I don't want to be a fuss. The part that I struggle with about being gluten free. But I mean, they scoop it all out right there in front of you, and there's no product there other than the tortilla that has gluten in it. So if you're just like, hey, like change your gloves so that you know that they're fresh,
yeah.
everything else there is gluten free.
So there's a dietitian that I follow on Instagram, and she talks a lot about eating out and things like that. And I would say overall, she's a better advocate about eating out than Nick and I are, which we own as a weakness. We want to normalize that for you if that's your experience. It's hard. We don't nail it. But what she recommends, her name's Taylor. I think she's the celiac dietitian. I don't know. Put that in the show notes too. She's great. Her name's Taylor. um, she says she recommends asking when you're at Chipotle that they change their gloves and that they switch out the utensils.
Mm-hmm.
That is my 2 cents from the expert on that. I have never asked for that, and it has always been fine. Sometimes I'll say when they start, like, I got a gluten allergy, and they'll change their gloves on their own.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say they kind of just do it anyways between orders.
Well, if they're not like on the line when you show up, they change their gloves.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what policy that is. I've never worked at Chipotle and I've never asked, but I feel like they're always changing their gloves out. You know?
Yeah, and because we're eating a bowl, they're not touching our food. It's not like they offer gluten-free tortillas and gluten tortillas and they're going between the two and like rolling it. Um, all of the stuff like in a bowl is being served with a spoon and
Yeah.
the spoon handle is not touching my food. So we've always had luck. I just wanted to add that little
Yeah.
note in there from Taylor, who is a nutritionist, that is what she recommends if you feel comfortable asking for that, and or feel like for your level of celiac or gluten sensitivity that you need to ask for that. We said this last time. We'll say it again. Be braver than us. Do it. Ask for everything you need, and we can talk about it in therapy about how it felt because it's hard.
Well, like the last one too, I want to just for this segment, just to keep it moving, is that I go to Taco Bell, and this is one that I don't think you've dabbled with yet, because it's Taco Bell. Like, what would they have that's gluten free? And they list their gluten free menu, but also with the like, hey, we're Taco Bell. We're not gonna like, they don't have gluten free facilities, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
if you ask for like a hard shell, this is what I get: a hard shell taco with chicken instead of beef, that is gluten free. Like there's nothing there that is a gluten. I guess the beef is, so I really stay away from the beef, which
Which is weird. Like, why? Like,
yeah, that's why like we Jess probably doesn't go there because It's Taco Bell trying to be gluten free. Um, so I get that. I've been fine. They have other items as well, but like I'm like, how can you mess up a taco? So I
Do
go
you
with the taco.
do you get like lettuce and tomato and stuff on it?
It's whatever comes with. I know it's lettuce and cheese. They're not like the most like exotic, crazy tacos, but like on my way home after like I'll work like a 12-hour day on set, and I'm like I'm not gonna go home and cook at 9 at night. I'm gonna stop at this Taco Bell though, and I'll order like 5 or 6 tacos and a Mountain Dew and call it a night.
Yeah. Let's
So
go. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's one of those things that like it's quick, and I've had really good experience with it. Again, go at your own like caution, but there's nothing in that recipe that is gluten. So like if you don't trust Taco Bell to be cross contaminating stuff like that, then don't go. But I've had good experiences.
Yeah, and so many of these like quick service restaurants that we're talking about, to me, they're so much about the mental health piece. It's about being able to eat quick and not be, hungry on your way home from work. Like I'll get a McFlurry on like a busy day in between like sessions, and I had a meeting during my lunch, and like I can feel myself crashing, and I got 4 kids booked in the afternoon. Like I'm on my way to McDonald's to get a McFlurry to like survive. And like the Wendy's is that social piece of like, hey, I can eat here, let's go, because there's one in Newington, like right in amongst all the shopping. So you're able to get it that way. So, we're not saying like these quick service restaurants are like the dream. You want a dream, you're gonna go to 110 Grill.
Yeah.
All right.
You're gonna
And
go to like a nice sit down restaurant, pay the money to have gluten free. You know what I'm saying? These places don't like none of them come out and say like, oh hey, this is gluten free. They list
we see
like
the opposite.
yeah, they have like an allergen menu where they're like chicken doesn't have gluten, but like everything else here's a gluten, so like come at your own risk.
Right. And to say of all of these, neither one of us have gotten sick from either cross contamination or a full blown exposure. So, I think we would definitely feel comfortable eating there. We do, and we feel comfortable sharing these resources with you, because, as we sort of said when we were talking about our road trip, these are new to us.
Mhm.
This knowing
Like there's
quick
Taco
places.
Bells everywhere. We could have stopped anywhere, had a Taco Bell. I don't know why we didn't get Chipotle more. But like we could have stopped at any of these places and grabbed a snack or grabbed, a better meal than just a peanut butter and fluff sandwich, and we didn't. So knowing this now, like I'd have a much more better time driving cross country because we could
Yeah,
eat, and my car has AC. So
that's true. It did not have AC. We were just, what desert were we in? The Mojave Desert.
yeah. So no, the thing is though, like it wasn't working full blast. It was like
Yeah.
halfway. So you're like, I'm warm. I'm not hot.
Blowing hot air at
I'm
us.
also not cool.
No, when we stopped at that gas station, like right after maybe we'd gone through Vegas, I'm not sure. I mean, we were straight up desert, and like we opened the door and it's the same temperature outside as it is
Yeah.
in the car.
Yeah. It got bad. The stretch from like Nevada to like the mountains of California, which it's just flat desert and it's crazy.
Yep. Well, man, we've got so much to talk about with that road trip.
Yeah.
Um, but let's start talking about our favorite at home stuff. So, Nick, honestly, like you paved the way for all of these finds. We talked a little bit last time about how I was gluten free for like a month, and Lucky Charms were like, "Oh, Jess had celiac now. Let's just give her gluten free Lucky Charms."
Mm. Well,
So I was not.
yeah, I was just gonna say like you were finding other easy options, but like I'm saying when I first moved to LA, I was new adult, so I don't know how to cook yet. I knew how
Right.
to like make eggs and stuff. I wasn't gonna do that every meal, but you were finding like food that was frozen, right? Like frozen foods that you could just like put on the stove, and it was like a really good meal.
So good. Yeah, so we have lots to share with you on like the breads that are not good and the bagels and stuff, and that's a longer conversation. But we have picked our top 3 favorite gluten-free at-home finds.
Yes.
Um, let's start with my number 3, which is going to be donuts. Would you rank this as your third out of those 3 we have listed?
Yeah. So what's funny too is like For me, I only put donuts on there because when I had these donuts, it was almost like a Grand Canyon experience. So I was like, oh my goodness, like a good donut. Because at the time, like everything I was eating was, if it was supposed to be like bread or like a donut, it just crumbled. And these didn't, and they were so good. And I could have eaten like a whole box there. So to me, of the three that we have listed, it probably is. And like, I've had really good experiences with bagels. Like I love some of the bagels I eat. But to me, it was the donuts that like I was like, oh man, I can have donuts again.
Mm-hmm.
So I put that one on there because that's something that like every kind of donut we found comes in a box that you can just kind of, it has like six or something in there, and can be your morning snack. Like I don't eat breakfast, so that's like on my way out the door, I'll grab a donut or something like that where it's just easy to have. I can come home from work, eat a donut. It doesn't need to be for breakfast, but for me, it was just something easy that I didn't have to cook.
Yeah, and that's important you said about breakfast. There's nowhere as of right now that we're aware of. If you know of one, let me know. That's like a quick place to stop for breakfast. Dunkin' Donuts does not offer. They just reintroduced their gluten-free brownie, which is great. I had one this weekend, but that's not breakfast, especially because my coffee is also chocolate, so it's just like a lot in the morning.
Well, so I have when I'm at Dunkin's, I get the tater tots. But I mean, if
Oh yeah.
if you watch how they cook anything there, I mean, it's just straight out like an oven kind of thing. But I mean, their gloves are messy, stuff like that. So yeah, when
That's
it
a
comes
definite eat at
to,
your own risk because that's a convection oven.
yeah, honestly, I probably shouldn't eat there. That's something where they're like,
But you've never gotten sick.
no, I've been fine.
Yeah.
But like when it goes to the donuts though, like it's all prepackaged. All you do is open it up and go. You know what I'm saying? It's not anything you have to worry about. It's like chill, relax, and you don't have to stress about, did that person cook like 4 sandwiches before grabbing my tater tots out of the convection oven?
Right. And as you were talking, I can't believe Starbucks has, which you don't like them. I think they're
Oh,
wicked. They
yeah.
have their egg sous vide, which is their like egg bites and
Mhm.
their little or like egg cups. They've got different flavors. So I like the bacon and Gruyere one. Delicious. I'll be honest, the texture is funky. Um, do I care because I want breakfast? Again, I had a lot
Yeah.
of weird food this weekend. I had them on Sunday. But we were like running behind and we were going to stop somewhere. And like, what's hard is like Ryan can stop at Dunkin' Donuts. He prefers Dunkin' Donuts, but I can't eat there. So he made a sacrifice and we went to Starbucks
Mhm.
and they hit the spot for me. And it's a convenient breakfast. Um, Sent us off topic there with Starbucks, but I couldn't go without saying that if you do need quick, because that's when in the airport too, they have the egg bites. So if you're traveling, they're in a convection oven too. So what I mean when I say that is convection ovens blow hot air around and circulate it through, which means there's a higher chance of cross contamination because if there's crumbs that have fallen, there is the potential that they blow up or around. It's not I've never gotten sick from that, but convection ovens are something to be aware of. So Starbucks uses a convection oven, but the egg bites are cooked in the container they're given to you in. Sort of like if you were getting pizza out, you'd want to see that it's like on a foil plate for the whole process. So they do the same thing with the egg bites, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and so now also though, speaking of bite-sized snacks, your favorite. So because then the next two is like your favorite and my favorite, really.
Yeah.
Um,
I would still rank Brazzy Bites number two
you
because
would?
I think the chicken permanent bag is like ingenious.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
but
but we'll
let's
get to
not
that one though. So yeah, go back to Brazzy Bites.
Brazzy Bites.
Because I don't quite even know what they are. Explain what they're super good, but what are they?
They're only the greatest snack ever invented. It's Brazilian cheese bread and it's tapioca starch, which is like a stretchier flour replacement, um, and cheese and oil and milk, and that's it. And it's so good. I've made them myself, and they always come out chunky. Do I still eat them? 10,000%, yes. But Like Brazzy Bites, it's a science, and you get them in a bag. They carry them at Hannaford's, is where I find them most easily, on the East Coast.
I
Have
find
you
them
found
at
them?
Ralph's, big grocery store chain out here, but that's where I find them.
Yeah. Yeah, and so on the East Coast, we'll find them at Hannaford's and Market Basket. Um, Hannaford's has the biggest selection because they got little empanadas,
Hmm.
which, I'm not going to give them airtime. They're fine. But Brazzy Bites, they got four different
It's the
flavors.
bites that get it.
Yes. So they're little bite size. I mean, maybe a little bigger than a quarter around, which means you can eat like 10 of them before you're
I've done
full.
it. I've eaten like a whole bag one time.
It's aggressive. They're so cheesy. The texture is so good because the outside will get crisp. Cooked them in our air fryer. It's
Ooh.
wicked good. I'm not gonna lie, I like them undercooked.
Makes them gooier.
It's a little gooier, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's in it that's gonna hurt me? It's fine. Um,
Well, and this is something too that like I don't think was made to be gluten free. It just like was made gluten free. Like
they're naturally gluten
Aussie
free.
bites, they weren't like, oh, how can we make them gluten free? It was like,
Yeah,
this is the concoction we've made, and they turned out to be gluten free.
and they're
So for us,
marketed to
yeah,
us.
for us, like, oh, it wasn't like we have to replace, XYZ here. They're just like, oh, this is the great thing we've made, and it's delicious.
Yeah, because tapioca starch is naturally gluten free, so they didn't have to like replace anything like you're saying.
Yeah.
I was introduced to them at the gluten free expo that they have in Worcester in non COVID times. And you just get to walk around and try all the gluten free food. And Braz Bakes was there, and they've got a cheddar one, they've got a garlic and Asiago one, they've got a pizza one, which is not for me, but I'm sure it's for some kid out there. And they've got a cinnamon one, which I've actually never had.
I don't think I've
Because
even seen that one.
no, I don't need a dessert Brazzy bite. I want a cheesy, garlicky Brazzy
I'll
bite.
say we're cheese eaters. If you want to like make anything better for like Jess and I, just throw some cheese on
Absolutely. I think that's the
it.
most accurate thing you've ever said. For us specifically, you want to make it better for us, just put cheese.
Just put cheese on it.
Do I wish I was different? Sure. Am I too late in the game at 28 to change my love for cheese? Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
again, that's how I cook though. I'm like,
Just
like
add
I just
cheese.
made like this, chicken and rice. Let me put some cheese on it.
That and garlic. You put garlic on anything, I'm
Garlic
sold.
powder. Oh man, I just made a pasta today where I was just like garlic powder.
Absolutely. That's good. Honestly, when I first, before I was diagnosed with celiac, but felt like garbage every time I ate, all I was eating was plain pasta with like garlic powder and cheese on top and gluten free pasta
Yeah.
because that didn't hurt my body. That and apples. I
Ooh.
ate so many apples. So I'm like, apples don't hurt me because we didn't know. I mean, we kind of had a feeling it was probably celiac, but at first I was like, I don't understand. So we cut out gluten, and I was living in Boston, and I can just like picture it so clearly. I would eat this meal all the time because there was a Trader Joe's. I was living like in Brookline, Trader Joe's like right on Beacon Street, and there was Trader Joe's has it's like a pesto marinated chicken that's gluten free, um, and anything pre marinated, pre anything, which will lead us into our number one spot soon. Any minimal effort, minimal dishes for Jess, and I'm in.
Yeah.
Um, so I had that with their rice pasta and mozzarella multiple times a week because it was another that and apples. I'm like, it doesn't hurt me. I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, and so the minimal effort part takes us to the number one spot, and this is something that like for me, not only is it like you said easy to make, like you don't put any effort into it.
No effort.
It's delicious. Like my favorite meal, like if I were to go out before I was gluten free, was to order chicken parm. So Udi's came out with gluten free chicken parm, like frozen bag, and all you do is just open it up and put it on the stove, and you have like really good chicken parm.
It's so good. So we need to pause for a second because chicken parm is not just your favorite food to eat out. It is your favorite food, hands down.
Yeah, like
Because
that's my favorite. Like number one food is chicken parm.
growing up, we would get to like if we got like good grades or something, we got to pick what we had for dinner. you would consistently pick chicken parm for forever. And describe the chicken parm that's your favorite.
Oh, before I was gluten free.
Yeah, it's the encore
The
chicken.
encore chicken, they're little like chicken patties, and they weren't like I
They're
felt
not
like they were
kind of.
soggy.
They are chicken patties.
Yeah, it wasn't like breaded chicken. I mean, it was breaded, but it wasn't like you got like a nice chicken breast and like breaded it. It was literally like a chicken patty that I could have eaten like that whole plate.
And it's like this container that you put right in the oven. It's got the cheese melted on top and just covered in sauce. And that was your request, was like the
Every
encore
time,
chicken.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm sort of teasing you, but like it was so good. And
And I
it
could
was
have
real
gotten
well.
anything. Like that was
That's
like,
what's
oh, Nick, what do
funny.
you want? You got good grades. I was like, oh, those really crappy chicken.
But they're so good. And I mean, we they're so good to the point where, I mean, and so good's relative, not like in quality or like flavor complexity, but like to our cheesy taste palates. We loved it to the point where we have recreated it multiple times in a
Mm.
gluten-free scale, where we've bought gluten-free chicken patties and melted cheese on, like an American cheese slice on top, and sauce
Mm.
to recreate the encore
And
chicken
so,
noodle.
but like for me though, the lazy part where I'm 26, but I still cook like I'm 22.
Mm.
Um, the Udi's gluten free, man. Like they just again, you put it on the stove for like 15 minutes, and you got yourself a comparable meal as to my good grade chicken parm.
Easily. So it's a bag. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how many people it serves because
It says two.
does it.
If we're trying to feed two people, you're going hungry.
You are go. And that's not us joking. I think genuinely it doesn't. It's not a ton of food for two people.
No, it's almost like this is like the entree, and you have sides with it.
Not,
And
yeah.
if that's what you're doing, fine. Yeah, it serves two people. But if you're just eating this,
It's not enough.
no, it's not enough.
So everything's frozen, which is like the science of this fascinates me. So the
Yeah, I don't
noodles
get it.
are already cooked
Bro, there's
and
like like
frozen.
like sauce chunks, and you're like, that can't
It's
be.
cubed. It's like cubes of frozen sauce, cubes of frozen cheese,
Yeah,
the gluten-free breaded chicken. Like they're like basically like chicken tenders cut up, and then you put it on your hot skillet, and then you cover it so that the heat stays in and it all melts together.
it's so good. I every time I go to the grocery store, because I will admit they're a little expensive, but I'm sitting there
Yeah,
and I'm
totally.
like, I could use dinner tonight, and this would be like, hey, I got paid yesterday, so let me go get some of these, and they're just so good. And again, my big thing is how easy it is to do. A lot of these other places that we talked about, like the fast food and other than sit down restaurants, I don't like to cook. So I don't like to wait for food. Like I
Yeah,
hate the cook for an hour, eat for 15 minutes kind of mentality. And this to me is you cook for 15 minutes and you eat for 15 minutes. It's very easy, and they're so good.
they're so good. I'm a big fan, and I don't like dishes. Ask Brian. I don't really do dishes because I don't like them. So like, if we're talking one pan, I'm in.
Mhm.
They are harder to find on the East Coast. Um, the places I've had the best consistent luck finding it is at Target. Um, and it's like hit or miss. There's the one in Somersworth, which is like hit or miss, and the one in Greenland is especially hit or miss.
Mhm.
And then the most consistent place I've ever found it is at the Super Walmart in Portsmouth. Um, they just little shout out to them. They have the best gluten free selection out of truly anywhere. On my the Nick's Gluten Free Kitchen story yesterday, I was posting all these like things I found because Pringles are not gluten free.
Mhm.
So Walmart has like a gluten free brand of sour cream and onion Pringles.
Yeah, and honestly, the place I've found them the easiest is they're always at Target for me.
Oh yeah,
You can find
Target.
them at like the grocery stores out here, but I feel like they're always like changing the way the gluten free section is in LA. I don't know why, because it's fairly big out here. But Target always has like a UD section, and you can always find it there.
And that's what's interesting about Target. Like, I don't think that their gluten free section is anything special, like at all compared to Walmart or in
Mhm.
general. But they have a UDs, like straight up UDs section.
Oh
And
yeah, they must have like
that
some crazy deal with Udi's because you go in there and like any Udi's product you want, you can find right there. Whether it's the bread, the bagels, the chicken parm. They also do like it's like a chicken pesto or something like that, where it's the same thing that's in a bag.
ravioli too.
Yeah, I mean it's they have it all, and Target carries it all. So,
Yeah, they do.
um, yeah, that's all we got for our good experiences this week. Honestly, we could keep talking because every time we were like, oh, then they have this and this. I honestly thought it'd be a little tougher to talk about the goods of gluten
Yeah,
free because, you know, if I it's something like you only leave a Yelp review if you had a bad experience.
right.
So for me, you only, remember a gluten free meal if first of all you're blown away like the Grand Canyon or you got sick. The in between stuff to me is a little tougher to find. Like, I could talk about like my favorite types of breads and stuff like that, but like nothing's mind blowing. So I'm not gonna like
Yeah.
tell you this is the good experience of gluten free.
Yeah. Well, I think what's hard and like to just touch on the mental health piece is like the negative experiences, the times where you're crying up, right? You're putting your head back to put your tears back in your brain. Those are the times that you remember, right? Like that's a traumatic experience. The times where you're physically sick are as a traumatic experience, right? So your brain's going to store that in a certain part that screams really loud when you're out to eat. And that part of your brain is actually going to shut down the front part of your brain that tells you you're okay and all the facts, right? So it's really easy to remember the negative experiences, for better, for worse. I mean, your brain's doing its job by like protecting you. But you're right, Nick. Like when we started brainstorming, like where do we like to eat? That's why 110 Grill is randomly typed into our notes, not even spelled right, because I'm like, oh my gosh. And you heard
Yeah.
how excited it made. Like I would say, it's top 1.5 next to the River House, and it's just
Well,
hard
and
to
it's
reflect on.
it's tough too because even if you aren't gluten free, like you have places you like to go, but you're not like this was a good experience going out to eat. But you remember the time that you got like food poisoning, and
Right.
you always like I'm never eating there again. So it's the same thing
God.
for us. And as we were talking about it, I think I could have rattled off a couple more places. Like in my head, I was like Jersey Mike's is a place that I go. Crazy cross contamination there, but
They
again,
try
I mean they do try and you can watch them and see like how well they're doing. Like last time I was there, it was fine.
though.
But
Five
it's also
Guys
like
is one we didn't talk about.
Five Guys, yeah. But like when we were working at our seafood restaurants we worked at, people would come in like, oh, we have a shellfish allergy. And you're like, well, why would you come to this place? That's
Mhm.
kind of how I feel about going to Jersey Mike's. I'm like, I have a gluten allergy. Well, then
Right.
why
To a
would I
sub
go?
shop.
Yeah, why would I go to a sandwich shop?
Yeah.
So those places go at your own risk. But again, I think it is important too that like when you go out to eat, like you were saying, the bad experiences will stick out. So you need
Mhm.
to make sure that you can kind of think through that and not let that stress you out to go out to eat because it's a big social part of living, going out to eat
Yeah.
with friends and um when we get into talking about like our diagnosis and stuff and how that like affected us, a big thing was not being able to go out to eat with my friends.
Yeah. I think that the entirety of celiac disease is a constant mental health push and pull. Uh, Having bad experiences, being really upset, feeling really isolated, and then having these crazy awesome experiences, but then like being pulled back of like you had to be the one to pick this place and not everybody liked it, and then you've only got like four go-tos. Like I just had to pick a restaurant we're eating at tomorrow, and I was like, I got three choices
Yeah.
to go for. Like, this is what we got. You feel like wings? Do you feel like pizza? Do you feel like burgers? Because that's our only choices.
Yeah.
So it goes back and forth, and it's important, when I'm talking about mental health with my clients. It's the idea that like it's your brain. It's not you panicking in that moment, right? Your brain's trying to send you a message. It's trying to keep you safe. And when we can sort of separate that out and put our brain over here to the side and go, all right, what is my anxiety? What is my stress trying to tell me? Um, it's a lot easier to cope with because when we separate it, it takes that guilt out of, I can't handle this. I can't do this. You can do anything you want. Like you are strong. You've made it this far. You've got an aggressive, like autoimmune disease, right? You went through the whole diagnostic process to get here. You can do all these things. But so when we take anxiety and we put it over here and go, this is my brain trying to keep me safe. Thanks, brain. Super appreciate you. But I know I'm safe because of X, Y, and Z. What evidence do we have to support that I'm safe?
Mhm.
And that's what, we're trying to do here, is like show you that there are places. Are there bad places? Sure. And that's where we're going to take our anxiety and say, thanks for keeping me safe.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go to 110 Grill and eat all the crab rangoon dip on earth because I have evidence to support that I'm safe, because the manager's bringing it out to me. They have a dedicated workspace. They're like celiac advocates. Like they're at that conference I was talking to you about. There's all these things. So being able to sort of separate those things out. And I think Nick and I, like, we actively did that prepping for this
Yeah.
conversation where we had to be really mad and then go, okay, but we've had cool experiences, so let's start this list.
Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed our second episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, this being the goods. Next week, we will talk about the uglies. And just like, that's just like, the holes in gluten-free bread, like, how small gluten-free bread is. The stuff that, like, it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's those little things that drain you. So that next week we're gonna wrap up this mini series. So we're not gonna end it on a negative note, but we could, because trauma. But we're going to wrap it all up. We're going to talk about that in between space. We're like, yeah, it's good, but like, this
Mhm.
kind of was a stinky situation, right? Because we live in a both and world, right? This stinks and we're all right. So we'll wrap that up. But yes, thank you for coming back for another week of Gluten Free Coast to Coast, episode 2. You can find last week's episode and this episode, a bunch of fun locations. You can find it on our website, nixgfkitchen.com. We are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Spotify, and we're on YouTube. You can catch the live version of us hanging out together on our YouTube channel, Nick's Gluten Free Kitchen. Lots of different ways to get us. So check us out, subscribe, keep following along so you can hear how we wrap this up. After this mini series, we got a lot more to talk about though, so
Yeah,
definitely stick around.
for sure.
All right, we'll see you next week on Gluten Free Coast to Coast.